John here, and today we're going to talk about review, and I'm sure we're going to rant a little bit on Rambo 5, Rambo Last Blood. And I need a drink. I need a little Powerade, because, I need a little power to get through this review here. Fuck. This movie sucks. This movie is the definition of pointless. It was unneeded, unnecessary. Rambo 4 ended it perfectly. With the character going home, it brought the character full circle. Rambo 4 ended it perfectly. It ended it on a high note. This movie was never needed, but I saw this in a theater, and rewatching the film again, this movie, again, is, you look up the word pointless in the dictionary, you're going to see Rambo 5. So let's get to the film here, the plot, the story. So Rambo is living on a ranch in Arizona, raising horses. He's developed a bond between this woman, Maria, and her teenage daughter. The teenager goes in search of her deadbeat father in Mexico, but then she's kidnapped by the Mexican cartel, and Rambo is now on a quest to, save her and punish the cartel. And that's the story here to Rambo 5. Now, the director here, Adrian Grunberg, had done Get the Gringo with Mel Gibson. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about the film. I haven't seen it. I do own it. It's in my collection somewhere. So I need to find it and watch it. Now, I'm willing to bet it's a better film than this. But the direction here is very bland for a Rambo film. It just comes off very flat. And the overall feel, of the film, the tone, it just feels cheaper. Like it feels almost like a direct-to-video movie or like TV movie quality. Sly, he returns as Rambo, but it doesn't look like Rambo. It doesn't feel like Rambo, and Sly is just way too old here. It's not like it was when Rocky Balboa came out, and even before that film came out, there were people that were being, critical of his age, saying that, oh, he's too old to, play this character again. And what happened? He proved everybody wrong. And just around that time, he was about, 60? This is 2019 we're talking about here. Sly here is, 72 or 3? So he's way too old to play this character. We're supposed to buy and believe that a 70-plus-year-old Rambo, can still kill people in these ways. And there's a moment in the film where, he goes after the cartel by himself and doing very un-Rambo-like things. Stallone, I love Stallone, but he's way too old here. And even his performance just comes off very tired. I'm like, go to bed, Grandpa. That's what I want to say. Grandpa Rambo, go to bed. At the supporting cast here, I did not care for any of the other characters. I didn't care about the Rambo and, Maria relationship. I didn't care about, Maria's teenage daughter in search of her deadbeat father. I didn't care for the main villain here. I thought the actor they got and the character was just very, one note and bland. At least in Rambo 4, the main villain in that film, you couldn't wait to see Rambo kill this guy because he was very brutal, very sadistic, and he got his comeuppance. Here, this villain, the actor that they got, again, he's just very bland. He seems like more a subordinate villain to a main villain. And you got this other character in the film, this journalist. I didn't care about her and her story, and even the way she looks with her hair and the choice of apparel. And I'm like, this character, I swear I saw her in Aliens. Even the plot sucks. This is the best that you got. If you absolutely had to make a Rambo 5, and this is the way that you go, this is the direction you take, we've seen this done before, and better. Look at Taken. Rambo 5 is the store brand version of Taken. It is the great value Taken. And, having this plot for a fifth Rambo film, it just sucks. And Stallone couldn't think of anything better. There's tons of ideas. There's all types of different ideas and ways you could have went with a fifth Rambo film if you absolutely had to make. But you go with this whole Mexican cartel angle, that makes it seem like a, $3 movie at Walmart. Now, to mention some things here that jumped out at me, the opening title of the film, when it says Rambo Last Blood, it just comes off cheap. I mean, I could have created a better title in my editor, and it would have came off better. Too much dialogue for Rambo here, and it goes back to the whole thing of it doesn't feel like Rambo, and, it doesn't look like the character that we all remember. And I get that he's older, but it's just way too much dialogue for the Rambo character. At one time, the teenage daughter, I swear, she refers to Rambo as Uncle Rambo. Like, stop calling him Uncle Rambo or whatever. Now, you do have some moments where, Rambo is, like, suffering PTSD or, like, taking pills. And, like, those little things, is interesting. About the only interesting thing about the movie is Rambo, taking pills or, suffering PTSD. But it's outweighed, by a lot of crap here. The score, by Brian Tyler, he returns to provide the score, but it's not as impactful, like it was in the fourth movie. And, the drama between Rambo and Marie and the daughter in the beginning, I didn't care about. I mean, it just felt very soap opera-like. What is this, as the knife turns? So I didn't care about the drama between those characters and the daughter taking off. And then, when she goes to Mexico, she's kidnapped, and, Rambo goes after her, to get her back. And, Rambo is going around Mexico and, trying to get answers. There's a scene where, Rambo goes after the cartel by himself, like on a rooftop. And, I thought that was very stupid of Rambo, where there's like 50 guys and they beat him to a pulp. And I'm like, why would you even do that? For a character, that is well into his 70s. And even then, something that jumped out at me in the movie, there's a scene where the bad guy has Rambo's ID, and it shows his birth date of 1950. But in the second film, First Blood Part 2, it's mentioned by Murdoch that he's born in 1947. So how can you fuck that up? But yeah, so I guess apparently they didn't watch the second movie. And I know that's one, people might say that's a small nitpick, but, there's so much more here. I mean, the scene, I didn't mind the scene where, before the part where he gets beat up to a pulp, where he's interrogating the girl, and he takes out the knife and he like stabs the table. And I'm like, okay, it's not that bad of a scene. The scene where, he stops this one guy from going into his truck and like stabs him in the leg and, pops his collarbone or breaks a bone right here. I'm like, okay, and, the last 25 minutes of the film, kind of jumping ahead here a little bit, the last, say, 20 minutes of the film where he's setting up traps and, preparing for a fight, because long story short, the girl that the teenage girl, had died. So he goes after them and, kills off, a few people, and the main villain hears about it, and now he wants to go after Rambo. And back at the ranch, Rambo is preparing by, setting up traps and, the tunnels, which I forgot to mention. But how in the world did he build those tunnels? Now, I understand that. My understanding is that he's been on that ranch for 10 years. So maybe he could have built those tunnels, of course, using a tractor and stuff. But, even then, that's not a one-man job. And, that's the whole thing. Like, the tunnels were cool, but I'm kind of like, when did he make these tunnels? Did he at the end of Rambo 4 when he walks home and, he walks onto the ranch, he looks around, he's like, well, I better start making some tunnels. This is going to take a while. I'm pretty sure that, he didn't create those tunnels by himself. But anyways, long story short, the villains, they arrive at the ranch. Rambo had set up traps and preparing, for a fight. And I will say, the last 10, 15 minutes of the film is fun. Rambo taking out these guys one by one in the tunnels, using, explosions and, different ways to, kill off these villains here. I don't think that you needed music in the film where, he's taking out people one by one in the tunnels and you have a song in there by the Doors. To me, that didn't really fit. Like, if anything, you could have used more of the score. Use a bit of that score from, from the fourth movie. Not a song from the Doors. So I will give the film the last 10, 15 minutes. There's some decent action there. And then the main villain goes into the barn looking for Rambo, and Rambo takes his bow and arrow and pins him against the door and rips his heart out. And then the film ends with Rambo in the rocking chair that he probably got from Cracker Barrel. And, and I think, like, at the very end, you see him ride around on a horse so he doesn't die. And you use score, like, they're using score from the fourth movie. And then the film ends where there's like a montage of the movies. And I'm like, yeah, I'd rather watch those. I'd rather watch the first 4 movies than this film again. And, the thing is, I got to thinking a little bit about, and I guess I can ask this question to everybody out there. If this wasn't called Rambo, if you still had Stallone in the film, but it wasn't a Rambo film, and if it was given a better director that can punch up the story and the action, do you think this would have been okay, or, would have been a decent movie? Because, the scene where he rips out the heart of the main villain, I'm like, okay, that would have been cool if this film was better than it was. Like, being called a Rambo film and this being a Rambo film, it's a mediocre film, but in a pointless movie. But I kind of wonder, if it wasn't called Rambo, and if he had a better director that can improve the story, improve the action, could this have been okay? Could this have been better? I don't know. But, with all that being said, let me get to my final thoughts on Rambo Last Blood. Sylvester Stallone's performance as John Rambo is tired, with bland direction and an uninspired plot. Brian Tyler's score this time around is not as impactful, some decent action in the third act, but it doesn't save this meaningless sequel. Rambo Last Blood was unneeded. And out of 10, I'm going to give Rambo Last Blood a 4 out of 10. But thank you for watching, and have a good day.